Alright guys, so I know I said I was going to do a video and it's been a long time for the Unreal Engine, so here it is. And I just want to warn you first of all that my resolution is terrible, so everything's going to look kind of big. It's not going to look this big on your machine, but it's just the display I'm working with right now, so get over it. And this is a room that I created, and I just kind of wanted to show you some of the things you can do in the Unreal Engine in order to create an environment like this and create games. So first of all, you're going to want to go to the Epic Games launcher, and you're going to need to download this. And this is free. You're going to need to create an account though, and when you do, you'll have the Unreal Engine over here. So again, this is the Epic Games launcher. Just Google it, and then you go down here to launch. The latest version is, I think, 4.17. I'm running 4.15. They're constantly updating it, adding new stuff. Totally free, so anybody who's got any interest in video games, I strongly recommend getting this or one of the other video game engines that are out there that are, professional quality. Like, I'm forgetting the name of the other big one, Unity, yeah. So anyway, you click launch, you choose a template. There's going to be some templates. You can choose a first-person shooter, a third-person. There's some racing games, whatever. You could just choose to do a blank one. I don't recommend that if you're starting off. And you'll end up in an environment that looks something like this. And we got a few things going on here. This is our viewport, and so this is kind of just what we see in our world. Over here is the world outliner, and this is the stuff that exists in your level. So if I were to click on this wall 10 and double click on it, it'll take me to wall 10. And if I were to click, on this dust right here, you can see the ambient dust effects. That you won't see the yellow outlines in game, but that's just kind of there as a previewer. So that's going to be your world outliner. Underneath that, there's going to be some details about each of the things you click on over here in the details panel. And so this is really helpful for, things like, I don't know, let's say I want to make this, instead of just a static object, maybe I want it to be movable, maybe I want it to be physics-based. So now when my character bumps into it, it'll actually move around. And when I play the game, it'll probably start freaking out because it's already clipping into another object, but we'll see what happens. So details, there's going to have stuff about physics, the material. This is the material right now. I can choose to change it. So I created these materials in Photoshop, and they're not great, but they're okay. There are, that's a whole different video. In fact, that's a whole series of videos. And this video is not to give you expert information. This is just to give people who are wanting to play around and tinker and just kind of start out, just an overview of what this program is all about. So if I change this to Rust, which is one of the built-in materials, there it is. I don't know why it doesn't look good. I have to rebuild the lighting, which is a whole other issue. But I don't know, I'll change it to something maybe a little brighter. Let's see what that looks like. There you go. So you can see. Why doesn't it look right? Because every object has a map that has to be shaped specifically for it. And again, that's a whole other issue. This is the character. And right now there's a light coming out of him. That's why he looks like that. And if you click on the character, you can see the blueprint by either double clicking on it or just clicking right here. And we can open up the blueprint editor. Now blueprints is where you're going to get into coding and that sort of thing, but it's done in a way that's very visual. So some of it is very self-explanatory. For example, if I push the jump key, then he'll either jump or stop jumping. And then these are functions that are going to occur. So these functions are built into the game. You can't really change them. You can change, how high he jumps, other things like that, but that's about it. Here we have getting the control rotation as far as the movement and how the camera moves and how the character is able to run around and stuff. So it does get complicated, but just to start off, you can just kind of play around with this stuff is what I would recommend, and come in here and just kind of tweak some values and see what happens. If you click on the character, you're also going to notice there's a lot of stuff under the details as far as how this character can move, as far as if we go down here, you're going to be able to adjust the gravity scale on this character. So if I brought this down to like 0.1, we'll see that later, he's going to be basically on the moon. And I can change his mass and how high he is when he's crouching, the speed in which he walks, how high he jumps, all these other, cool little variables. And so there's a lot to look at there. I'm not going to get into camera right now. That's got a little bit complicated. This right here, this is just a player start. So when I hit start, that's where the player is going to begin. It's a network player start. And then we have over here, this window is going to give us modes, all the different things we can place, basic objects. So if you wanted to just experiment and throw a cube in there, boom, there it is. And let me just zoom in so you can see. Not a very exciting looking cube, all white, but if we want to give it just the basic material, I don't know, let me see what kind of metals they have here. Let's look at burnished. There we go. That's kind of cool. So now we have a cube, and you can, throw any of the other shapes in there. You can also play around with some visual effects, such as fog, although I wouldn't recommend starting off with that. There's things like sphere reflection captures, other things that lighting is, again, and plan on investing 20 to 50 hours just to get the basics of what all these things mean. Geometry is good for blocking out the level, which means kind of before you start adding all the fancy stuff, just kind of blocking out where is everything going to be. Some developers use it and some do not. There are volumes, and some of them are actually really important. For example, the trigger volume is going to be pretty useful. So if my character walks into this box, I could make it so that, I don't know, this ceiling caves in, falls. I could turn on physics, and all of a sudden, boom, you got a wall on top of you. There's some lights and stuff. You can start with some basic point lights. Just throw those suckers around. You can see it looks really beautiful. This game engine is professional, and you can make really good looking stuff without a huge amount of skill and effort. Okay, so let's go down here down to the content browser. So the content browser is going to be all the assets, and an asset is anything that you have available to you to use in the game. And these are the ones that are existing now. Now you can create new ones. Sometimes you may have to do that, like materials or levels if you want a new level, blueprints, particle systems, and there's all sorts of other things. But don't worry about that now. Don't be overwhelmed. If you want to go into just the starter content, there's going to be a lot of cool stuff for you here already. So you'll have some floors, some platforms you can put in there, some walls with doors in them, etc. You're going to have some audio available too. You're going to have some blueprints. For example, we have a blueprint here for a wall sconce, and basically that's just a light, but it's already got the. Let me turn game mode off here. It's already got the little designs for it, the assets for it as well, not just the light, and it's all put together. There is some levels that it gives you, some materials. So if you decide, hey, I want to try seeing what it would look like if I made this gold, you can just drag it on there or over here. And there it is. You now have a gold wall. I did not create those textures. I did create the tiles, but we'll learn about how to do that. There's some particle effects and some props that it gives you just to start off. I can throw a chair here, and some shapes and some textures. You probably don't want to apply textures directly. That's kind of a different thing. Textures are actually the pieces that make up an individual material. So just think textures are just part of the material, usually. Okay. So then that is the basic overview. As far as moving around, if you know the WASD controls, you're going to hold your right mouse button, and you can WASD, Q and E are going to move up and down. And you can spin the wheel on top of your mouse, the scroll wheel, and it'll either slow down or speed up how fast it is that you're going to move around. You can also click on an object and hit F, and that'll kind of center your focus there, so that's a really cool way to move around. And then if you hold down Alt and the left mouse button, you can spin around. Once you've selected it, you can spin around right on that object, which is a great way to see it from various angles. There's a lot more to it than that, but if you want to just get in there and just play around, this is a great place to start. After watching this video, just experiment with it. Now that you kind of have some idea of where things are, try bringing some basic objects in and just throwing these guys in, and turn on some physics. So when the game starts, these guys are going to start bouncing around, and you can bump into them and shoot them. And the game starts off with a little default gun that it gives you. You're also probably going to need to know W, E, and R, which is something you're going to need for 3D modeling as well. But basically W allows you to get in the mode where you can move an object on the X, Y, or Z axis. Or you can grab it right in the middle and just kind of move it around. But that's really tricky to do because it's hard to see. E is going to give you the rotations, and that's not a very good object to rotate since you won't be able to see it. But let's check this one out. Alright, so let me go to this chair right here. And then we can see that we can rotate it on the X, Y, or Z axis. And I always forget which color is which, so I'm not going to say. Or again, you can, I think you can, no, I guess you can't rotate in the middle. And then we have the R. So that's Q, that's up and down, all that. E, rotation. R is going to be scale. You can scale it all at once, or you can individually scale each of the axes. And then in the details panel, of course, you'll find that, you know, if you want to reset that, you can adjust the scale manually as well by going like 2, 2, 2 or whatever. And then you have an extra big chair. So let's go ahead and see what this looks like when you actually play the game. It actually does handle VR, so I have an Oculus, so you can actually play it in that, but I'll just go ahead and say, let's play it in the selected viewport. I'm going to do an F11 to go full screen, and the lighting is not, oh, and you can see our pillar, see how it fell over there? And this ball should have physics, so I should be able to bump into it. There we go. And you might have noticed that some of the things, the lighting maybe seems a bit off. Like this cube just seems kind of bright for this environment. Oh yeah, and there's his moonwalking. Yep. But that's because the lighting has not been built. And it actually tells you in the top left, if you look, that the lighting needs to be rebuilt for this game. And every time you put new objects in or make changes, you know, you're going to have to occasionally rebuild your lighting, which is a process that the computer is going to have to sit there and think it over and make all its calculations, and then everything will look nice and pretty and suited for the environment. So in order to do that, you're just going to go up here and hit build, and it'll go through and build your lighting. Save often, because this program is known to crash in my experience quite a bit. And there are countless YouTube tutorials for anything that you might be wanting to do. So maybe you want to give your character a jetpack, it's there, or heads-up displays, or, you know, a flashlight, or maybe you want to have an artificial intelligence, which is complicated, but we'll get into how to make your own textures if you want to make your own fancy-looking walls or tiles or whatever. We'll also get into how to create your own 3D objects. So if you model something and you want to bring it into the game. So for example, I think I modeled these, you know, basic pillars. I think I modeled this window frame. Yeah, I did. And I'll just kind of take you over an overview of how you can get started. So again, I'm not a professional. This is a hobby of mine. I'm a teacher of video game design at a high school. But I think that there's a lot of cool videos out there, but I think this will just give you a nice overview for those of you who are just looking to get into it. Because I often get students asking me, or, you know, just people in general, I would love to make video games. How in the world do I get started? And I'm telling you, this is the way to do it. So thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions, please just post them underneath, and I will do my best to answer them. And get ready for a few more videos coming soon. Thanks.